want to say Director Andrew, but it's Paul.
Director Paul.
Hi, everyone.
I guess it's hard because it's in so you have to answer to both.
Names are not my strong point, so remembering everyone's name to begin with is hard for me. I usually remember first names and forget the last.
Yeah, that way, so it's visible on the camera.
That's not gonna.
You'll know your own name.
It's not gonna help me with anyone else's name.
Those of you.
I could put a template.
Friendly bunch here. Don't get criticized too harshly.
Thank you. Yeah, people could just refrain from beating up, that will be okay.
Okay, so we have everybody in attendance now. It's 4 p.m. Hello, everybody. I'm Michelle Jones, Corporate Officer for the Quebec Regional District, and I'm calling this Committee of the Whole meeting for Thursday, November 10th, 2022 to order. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. The first order of business is election of the chair. I'll call 3 times for nomination for the position of chair. I'll call the first time for nominations for the position of chair. Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to nominate Director Elliott for the position of chair.
For the position of chair, do you accept this nomination?
I do, thank you.
I will call a second time for nomination for the position of chair. Director Fall.
I'd like to nominate Director McCormick.
Director McCormick, you've been nominated for a position of chair. Do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I will call a third time for nomination for the position of chair. Hearing no further nominations, Director Elliott and Director McCormick have been nominated for the position of chair and have an opportunity to address the assembly. Director Elliott, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this honor of the nomination. I really appreciate that. I would, as chair, focus on running the meeting according to good diplomacy, good relations between all. Focus on the aspects of ensuring that we are kind and respectful to one another. Thank you.
Director McCormick, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I've chaired Committee of the Whole for the last 4 years and have kind of really learned to appreciate the variety of issues that come up at Committee of the Whole. So everything and anything really can come to the committee. So it's important that the chair understand the breadth and depth of the issues that are here, and also an ability to work together with other people and to, say things diplomatically and to respond to questions and queries in a patient and positive manner. I've tried to do that during the last 4 years, and we'll strive to, to continue in that manner. So, thank you.
Thank you. So the Deputy Corporate Officer will pass out ballots now. Please write clearly. If you're participating electronically, please send yours through and I will write them down. Thank you. Has everybody placed their vote? Have I received all votes? I will tally the votes now. you very much. Director McCormick, you've been elected for position of chair for the Committee of the Whole. Before turning the meeting over to you, I would ask the committee if they would like to pass a motion to destroy the ballots. Director Doubt has.
Move that motion.
Is there a second? Director Elliott has moved or seconded that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed.
I have a lot of stuff to learn.
The laptop case.
It is, isn't it? And something new here. Working on. All right, well, thank you very much, directors, and I appreciate your confidence in me. The first item.
I have to step out for 2 seconds because something got in my eye.
Just go.
To fix it.
Oh, thank you. All right, well, while Director Elliott is preparing her eye, I would draw everyone's attention to the agenda. The motion on the table is that the agenda be approved as presented. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda as proposed?
I'm just gonna move that we approve the agenda as proposed.
Thank you very much, Director Dow, Director Brenner. All right, let's wait for Director Elliott to get back for just a minute, and out of courtesy to her, and hopefully it won't be too long. So while we're waiting for her, I just want to say that we have been kind of advised through the training that we've had starting this session that really the right procedure is for any motion that's on the table, every director has the opportunity to speak twice to that motion. So every director who wishes to speak would speak a first time to the motion, and any director who wishes to speak a second time may then do so. And after that, we will end debate unless there are unusual circumstances. So basically, barring unusual circumstances, that is the process that we will follow. And also, I think I just want to point out for correspondence, we're going to have a slightly different procedure than we've had before. So, Director Elliott, the agenda has been moved and seconded and debated, and now we're about to vote.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon, Director Gisborne, comment?
We haven't had discussion on approval of the agenda yet, Chair.
Okay, well, you're back now. So discussion on approval of the agenda. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that item 8.4 be moved to the in-camera portion of the agenda.
Okay, well, that's why I asked at the beginning if there were any changes or, amendments to the agenda.
So I must not have heard that.
I did say that. All right. Is there general agreement around the table that this take place? I'm not getting responses. So would you like to make that as a motion, Director Gisborne?
Yes, I would like to move that item 8.4 be moved to the in-camera portion of the agenda.
All right. Is there a seconder for that motion, Director Paul? Thank you. Discussion on making that change.
Sure. In my opinion, it is clearly a matter of labor relations. It is a follow-up of an in-camera decision and an in-camera discussion. If this was to be discussed in a public session, I believe it will either limit the discussion on the proposed motion or it will result in confidential information being discussed in the public realm. Also, it has come to my attention that we have a potential delegation in relation to item 8.4. And if this motion passes, I would also like to move a recommendation that the delegation, if they're willing to agree, that their presentation also be moved to the in-camera portion.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the agenda? Any further discussion, Director Elliott?
So I haven't been party to the last term, obviously, but it does seem to me that this particular issue does have the potential to be talking about things of a personal nature So I have no objection to putting it in camera if it does fit items that are allowed to be in camera. And I would leave it to staff to advise about that. Thanks.
Corporate officer, do you have a comment on perhaps the provision of the community charter that this might come under?
Yes, thank you, Chair. If this motion were to pass, and this item moved to the in-camera section, my recommendation would be under 11.1 to add clause 80, labor relations, under to that motion.
11.1, okay. Let's see, labor relations. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this item? I'm seeing none, so all in. Director Brander?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I just would like to have staff's opinion on the need to move it to the in-camera session. I understand it was handled, it was part of a Horizon report to the public.
Which one of you would like to do this? Okay, corporate officer.
Oh, I think I'll turn it over.
Oh,
to-
okay. CEO.
Through the chair. Any dealings with directors, elected officials are basically not protected or captured under the community charter. And therefore, that is why this was proposed to be in the open meeting. The content of the report is very minimal because it's just dealing with the lifting of a sanction. And but it's the Assembly's desire, if they want to go in camera, they may so do so. But I don't think the charter actually supports that.
Director Dow.
Oh, just, so we fully discuss it. I'm not sure whether or not this meets the requirement for something to be in a closed agenda. I wasn't anticipating myself that there'd be a lot of debate on this tonight, but I could have been wrong. There is an opportunity in the closed session on the closed agenda to discuss whether or not things are appropriately on that agenda. And any decision that's made will be announced in a Horizon report, I would expect. So, I'm satisfied to move it to an in-camera agenda, subject to the fact that there will be a discussion in the in-camera meeting as to whether or not that's appropriately an in-camera issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we are voting on the amendment to move item 7.4 to the, I got that number right? 8.4, sorry, to the in-camera agenda. That is the amendment that is before us. All in favor of that amendment? Any opposed? The amendment is carried. So we're back to the main motion on adoption of the agenda as amended. Discussion, or no, we've already had a mover and seconder discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Since item 8.4 is going to be handled in a closed session, and it has come to my attention that we have a delegation here tonight to speak to item 8.4. I think it would be, do we need a motion to have the delegation portion for that individual move to the in-camera session? And second question would be, since the delegation appears to have a young child with them, would it be more appropriate to handle the in-camera session earlier in the meeting so that they don't have to stay the entire duration?
Inviting people to the in-camera sessions happens during the in-camera meeting, and that is when advice would be provided.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion, CAO?
Just for clarity, is the delegation registered or unregistered?
Thank you, through the chair. The delegation is an unregistered delegation. And so the provisions of the procedure bylaw would apply to that. And we have not received a report from the delegation. Therefore, it would have to be the majority of the members would have to agree to have that delegation address the assembly.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, you've already had more than two
My
opportunities.
second question has yet to be answered.
Do it.
Do what?
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. My second question was, should we move the in-camera session or in-camera session earlier in the meeting so that if we do choose to have the unregistered delegation speak at the in-camera session, they don't have to wait for the entire meeting because they have a young child and out of respect for the public. I think that would be appropriate.
I will get staff to comment on that. It would be, first of all, my opinion that we have a public session booked and people who are, waiting to watch this, online, etc. We have our TV crew in place already. So it would be my thought that no, we carry on. And yes, I understand that young kids can be issues, and you know what? I'm sure she's very capable. So does staff have anything further to add on that?
It is a desire to the assembly to move in camera. I think delivering the agenda would require a vote of 2/3 majority.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on adoption of the agenda? Director Gisborne, you've had.
I can make a motion, Chair.
Yes.
I would like to move an amendment that we consider item 11 immediately after item 4.
Item 11, immediately after what?
Item 4,
After item 4.
which is before the public delegation.
Okay, so you're suggesting then that we move in camera.
In camera before we move to public delegations.
All right. Is there a seconder for that motion?
I'll second it in the motion.
Okay, Director Elliott has seconded. CAO.
Through the chair. I understand where you're going, Director Gisborne. I want to confer with the corporate officer because I think you may want to do it after 5. Because the delegation is unregistered, therefore the board must first decide to accept the delegation. And I think you would be shutting out that opportunity if we went in camera.
In response, thank you, CAO, for your input. My concern is that if we have the delegation occur before the in-camera session and the delegate wants to discuss something of a sensitive nature, that we then say go in camera, but that delegation has then chosen to present at the public session because they may or may not get the option to speak after the in-camera session. And that's where I have concern, is we should provide the delegation the opportunity to speak to the item which has been moved in camera prior to, also giving them the opportunity, if the board chooses, to discuss the matter in a public session.
CAO.
Through the chair. For the process, I think we need to have the board agree to hear the delegation. At that juncture, then they could be advised to attend in camera. And then we go in camera. And then we actually make that other motion of other people attending the in-camera session. And that to me would be the flow of the process. Does that sound right?
I think what we would want either way, it would be in camera where we decided if we were going to admit somebody into the open session or into the closed session.
Well, all I'm saying, corporate officer, is that once we get to number 5, we're already in camera. And the individual is not being given an opportunity to get in there.
Okay, I have Director Powell first and then Director Doug.
Thank you, Chair. We don't know what the delegation is about, so I'm a little concerned about process here. I don't have any information, any report, or even a title of what the subject matter is. So a member of the public does not, by definition, almost have in-camera information. And if we don't know what the delegation is about, I'm a little uncomfortable about speculatively readjusting our agenda based on lack of any information about what this is all about. So I'm not in favor of this adjustment at this point.
Thank you, Director Powell. Director Doug.
Can you just tell me what we're actually discussing at the moment? I think there's a motion on the floor.
The motion on the floor is to move the in-camera session after adoption of the minutes.
I'm not in favor of doing that for the reasons that the chair pointed out before, is that there are members of the public that are attending and they expect the meeting to happen at a scheduled time. and are participating. As to the discussion between the chair and the corporate officer, it seems logical to me that if we decide at the appropriate time on the agenda to go into a closed meeting, when we would then follow the normal procedure that the board does in closed meetings, and if the board wishes to, invite other people who are not directors to participate in the closed meeting. That, in my view, would be the appropriate time to see if we were going to invite someone into the closed meeting, be it a delegation or anybody else within that closed meeting. And there we go. And note that it's Director Gisborne who requested to have this in a closed meeting. And if we're going to do that, we normally do it on the agenda at the end of the meeting. So I prefer to go that way.
Thank you, Director Doak. Director Elliott.
I'm not in favor of changing the order of the agenda. I think the public has the right to expect things to go the way we publish them. And I understand the desire to accommodate the mother with her child, but I'm not in favor of changing.
Okay, thank you, Director Elliott. Anyone who hasn't spoken on the amendment, this amendment to the agenda? I don't see any hands. We are voting, Director Gisborne, we are voting on the motion to move the in-camera session under to follow item 4 on the agenda.
Yes, that's my understanding. Do I get my second kick at the can?
Yes.
Thank you. The reason I put this item or recommended putting this item before the public delegation is if this delegate who has informed me that they wish to attend tonight to speak in relation to item 8.4, and they get the opportunity to speak in the public session and they start speaking about item 8.4, that can be very difficult now because we have moved item 8.4 to the in-camera session. If they choose and the board allows them to speak at the public session, and then we go in camera, we might be in a difficult situation. My thought was that we first give them the opportunity to speak at the in-camera session to hear what they have to say and whether it is sensitive information. And then if we decide, no, we're not going to let them speak at the in-camera session, then they can still speak in the public session. My concern is that they have indicated to me prior that they wish to speak to an item that was on the public agenda, and we have already passed a motion to move in camera. So if we vote down this motion, then I'm not sure if the delegation is wishing to speak at the public session because they're not sure if they'll even get the opportunity to speak at the in-camera session. That's my reasoning for putting the in-camera session before number 5. And if we do go in camera before the delegation inquires of the public session, my thoughts are that we don't have to stay in camera for the entire in-camera session. We can just deal with maybe just their delegation and then move back out, and then later on in the meeting, move back into in-camera session is my thoughts.
CAO?
Through the chair, I'm just going to go back to my rationale as to why to stage it the way I proposed, is because an unregistered delegation is not guaranteed to speak anyways. The unregistered delegation needs a majority of the assembly to allow them to speak. And I thought if you moved your proposed motion to be after 5, then the assembly would at least be able to determine whether or not the individual is going to speak at all anyways. I thought that would be a more safer route, because it still could be that we go in camera and we hit number 5 and the assembly may not allow them to speak anyways because they're unregistered.
Thank you, CAO. Seeing no further hands up, we will have a vote on the amendment to move the in-camera session following item 4 on the agenda. All in favor of this amendment? I see one hand. Any opposed? Okay. The motion is not carried. So we are back to the main motion of approving the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're now on to item 5, delegations and inquiries. Corporate officer, there is,
Chair.
oh, sorry, adoption of the minutes, right, September the 8th, 2022. Are there any errors or omissions in this minute? Seeing no hands, a motion to receive them, please. Director Brander, seconded by Director Powell. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're on to delegations and inquiries. Do we have an unregistered delegation wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have Ms. Bronwyn Gisborne wishing to address the committee. The unregistered delegation hasn't submitted a report. So as per section 4.21 of the procedure bylaw, where a written report has not been received by the office of the corporate officer as described in section 414, an individual delegation may address the meeting if approved by the majority. And just the report is typically the subject of the delegation that states any requests being made of the assembly and any resolutions that they desire. So that would be up to the membership. Perhaps we could ask the delegation into the room.
He's just outside.
Yeah, she's up there. First of all, could we just have a kind of an informal show of hands? Are we agreeing to having an unregistered delegation? Yeah, Director Dowd.
We've got an unregistered delegation. I'd like to know what the subject of the delegation is. I think that's pretty basic information for the board to ask. We've had some information from Director Gisborne about what he thinks it might be about. But I'd like to know what the subject is that the delegation wants to address the board.
We have not been
making a
given the
decision.
We've had no report and no subject. So the question to you, and maybe we should do this as a formal motion. Yeah, CEO and corporate officer.
There, section 4.20, you could ask the delegation what they want to address the committee about.
Welcome, Ms. Gisborne. Right. What is it that you wish to address the committee about?
Item 8.4. What it says in item 8.4 is, I don't have it in front of me, but just the removal of the sanction of Director Gisborne speaking with the staff.
Okay, so that's the topic that you want to talk about.
That is the topic that I want to talk about.
Okay, all right. So yeah.
Through the chair, that's satisfied, Mr. Director Dowd.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for letting us know what you want to speak about. You know, we can talk about where that might be appropriate. And I think the subject matter, since we've moved that item into the in-camera agenda, the time to discuss hearing a delegation on that would be in the closed meeting.
I don't disagree with you, but perhaps we should have a formal motion and a formal vote as to whether or not we wish to receive this informal delegation at this time.
Well, I'll make a motion to consider the request to appear as a delegation within the closed meeting that is scheduled for the end of the agenda.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, Director Lennox, I think that was you had your hand up first. All right. So the motion before us is to move the consider moving the delegation to the in-camera portion where the item that she wishes to address will be considered. So any discussion on this motion? Director Elliott and then Director Paul.
I'm in favor of that motion. I think that in order to be considerate of the mother with the child, there may be some way we can, she could go away and we could communicate with her when we're ready to talk to her about whether she could do her delegation or not. So I think that would be the considerate way.
Thank you, Director Elliott. Director Paul.
I guess I just have a question, which is, generally our delegations are at the beginning of the meeting and before we've considered any items. And so this item has been put on the in-camera agenda, and typically members of the public aren't even aware of what the agenda is for the in-camera agenda. So here in this case, it was on the open meeting. So But in general, in terms of process, members of the public come and delegate to us at the beginning before we've made any decisions. And so as members of the public aren't privy to in-camera information, I guess my question is it not appropriate from a process point of view for delegations from the public to be done in open meetings, even in a situation like we're in right now? I'm okay with it being in camera. I don't mind either way, but I'm just wondering if it's not appropriate for the delegation to be in the open meeting.
CAO?
Through the chair, we have in the past had delegations present in camera, depending on the sensitivity of the item, basically whether it fell under law, labor, land. And so we have had other, like I say, other delegations present in camera. So I don't think it's a problem process-wise. And I think this particular method of getting there is suitable.
Okay, thank you. And if I can ask, if you might allow me to ask a brief follow-up, which is, are we not enabled to go in camera right now if we allow this delegation, if we approve the unregistered delegation to go in camera right now, and then come out of the in camera after the delegation and carry on and then do the regular in camera items or agenda when we get there?
That was the subject of the motion previous, where the proposal was to move change the agenda so the in-camera session could follow item 4 on the printed agenda, and the decision of the group was that no, we would follow the process that has been set.
With the respect, Chair, that's not actually the same. What I'm talking about is going in camera just for this item, and then carrying on with the agenda and then going, not moving the in-camera session. The in-camera agenda stays where it is and we deal with it when we get there.
CAO?
Through the chair, for clarification, then Director Fall, what you're proposing is that the assembly go in camera for this delegation only, and then once the delegation is completed, go back into the open meeting and continue on through the agenda as per norm?
Correct, and that would be that might help the member of the public who Ms. Gisborne, who has a child, and she wouldn't have to come back, and we wouldn't have to change our agenda around. And the only difference from having it as an open delegation would be that we'd do it in a closed session.
All right, now we do have a motion on the table. Yep, CAO.
Through the chair, with the consensus of the board, I believe we could do that. I think you would want to still make the appropriate in-camera motion to get there. And of course, we're suggesting that it is C, labor relations. But with consensus, if the board agreed to go in camera, then I think it would be okay at this juncture.
Okay, now we do have a motion on the table. Corporate Officer, can you review what the current motion says?
Thank you, Chair. I believe it was to move the request to appear as a delegation to the in-camera session.
All right. So that would be the question that we are then deciding. And if we wish to move the in-camera session up, then we would consider that after the decision on this motion is achieved. So is there any further discussion on the motion on the table? Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. One quick question for the corporate officer. If this motion passes, then would it be in order to put forward a motion to go in camera immediately after?
Yes, thank you. Yes, you would make a motion to go in camera under section 91C. And I would suggest also not leaving out section M or N.
Through the chair, I would suggest that before you do that, you make the consensus vote that you want to go in camera. Once that approval, then the motion to go in camera can be made.
Right. So we are voting on the motion on the floor, right? So I will. Director Elliott?
So it sounds to me like we're needing an amendment to the current motion to say we would go in camera immediately as opposed to and then come back to accommodate the suggestion of Director Powell.
So, yeah, you're proposing an amendment? Yeah, CAO.
Through the chair. No, we're just taking it in stages. The first stage is to enable the delegation to speak in camera. Right? So the next stage, if we were to continue on, would mean they would have to wait until item 12 or whatever it is, 11. But with the consensus of the board, you may choose to go in camera immediately for that item only, the delegation.
Okay.
Hear the delegation and then come back into open meeting and continue on with 6 through the
And that'll
rest of
be
the
a
agenda.
Separate question to the board. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So once again, would you mind reviewing the motion that we are now voting on? So that there is complete clarity on what we are being asked.
So my understanding of the motion that has been proposed by, is that the request to be an unregistered delegation be considered moved to the closed session. So it would not be deciding whether the delegation can appear, is that the request be considered under.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. All right, so now, the next issue is, did you want to make a motion to break from the public session, go in camera, hear the delegation, and then come back?
I want to ask the assembly if it's okay to consider doing that.
Is it okay if we consider doing this? Okay, all right, I'm seeing hands up, so, okay, I'm getting consensus that we do that.
As long as the chair is aware, what the chair is doing is asking everybody to nod their heads to a reconsideration of a previous decision.
Yes, it is, because we already had that. But if people are agreeing, then, all right, so we would then now go on camera, is that correct?
So,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
clarification. I believe that what the chair is doing is making a motion to go in camera for the purpose of hearing from the delegation and nothing else.
Okay, so you're proposing that?
I'm not proposing it. I thought it was what you were proposing. I just want to be clear because everyone at the table has basically proposed something slightly different.
So
If we're going to vote and we're going to all agree to do something, I'd like to know what we're all agreeing to do.
Thank you, Chair. I think what the purpose is to go in camera to make a decision whether to hear the delegation and then potentially hear the delegation. We were only going, the previous decision was to move the whole in-camera session. Or the previous motion was to move the whole in-camera session to that section. But now we're discussing just moving one portion in camera.
Okay, and I'm seeing nods that we can do that, at least that's the consensus, but do we still need a motion?
Yes, you
Yes.
do.
All right, so I'm looking at the motion in 11.1 and it would be under 11.1 section B, labor relations. So would someone like to make this motion that we do go in camera for this purpose?
I think it was Director Paul who had a suggestion.
Okay, I don't have the language in front of me for that, so.
I can do it then.
Okay, Director Gisborne.
I move that the committee move in camera and the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations, and N, the consideration of whether a committee meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
All right, that is motion seconded by Director Elliott. Discussion, have we got the right sections here?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? We are now going in camera.
How do we?
Thank you.
You're shut.
Are we going
We're
to?
going to leave everybody out, no discussion. I'm just gonna let. We're back in open session, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome back to Committee of the Whole. We are now on item 6 on our agenda, which is unfinished business. And there are no items of unfinished business, which takes us to item 7, correspondence. We're going to handle correspondence a little differently than we have in the past, where we would have a motion to receive or do other actions for each individual item of correspondence. Now we are looking at motions that come out of the various letters that we have received. And you have in front of you the correspondence, 10 items of correspondence. And there are some motions proposed already for 7.2, 7.6, 7.7, 7.9, and 7.10. Are there any other items of correspondence that require business arising? No, seeing no items, no hands up. So now we will go on to the first item. Oh, Director Paul. Yeah.
You're muted, Director Paul.
Did you include 7.9 in there?
I believe I did.
Okay, sorry, my brain had a skip. Thank you.
7.2, 7.6, 7.7, 7.9, and 7.10.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Director Gisborne.
I would like to move the motion associated with item 7.2.
Okay, that motion has been moved. Request from the letter of support. Is there a seconder for that motion? Director Brander, discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're now on to the motion proposed for 7.6. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Well, no, we haven't made the decision yet.
Thank you, Chair. This is a time sensitive of nature. Normally we make these decisions in December, but we'll require this to be decided this month.
Okay. Director Brander.
I would move that the committee recommend the board appoint Director Doubt to the North Island 911 Board of Directors and that Director Lennox be appointed as their alternate.
Motion's been made, Director Doubt and Director Lennox. Is there a seconder for the motion? Director Gisborne, thank you. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, we are now on to 7.7. Same idea. They're looking for an appointment. Director Paul.
I'll move the recommendation with Shelley Garside as the alternate director.
Okay.
She hasn't done her oath yet, but she's agreed to be my alternate. And she was my alternate last term.
Yes, she was.
I'll second.
Second that. Okay, any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're now on to 7.9, correspondence from the Hospice Society. Director Brander.
I'll move that the committee recommend the board ratify direction to Director Brander and Director Doubt to attend November 24th, 2022 meeting of the Powell River Hospice Society as representatives of the regional board and regional hospital district board.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Director Fall, thank you. Any discussion on this? Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I was kind of hoping that I might be one of the district's representatives to the Hospice Society, as I have a fair bit of work experience dealing with people at end of life practices. It's kind of my current job.
All right. Thank you for saying that. Certainly important to know. Is there any further discussion on the item on the table? Director Paul.
Just as a question, is there any problem with additional directors, such as Director Gisborne, from attending the event?
See, Corporate Officer.
Yes, thank you. So I did speak to, they have a limited number of spaces, and it was supposed to be one person from each organization, but we don't have a meeting of the board or a chair at this time. So there is a limited space available.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Director Elliott.
Thank you. So the motion has us filling in the blanks here, and there doesn't seem to be a way to accommodate feeling out who's interested and why, and that feels a little awkward to me. So I have no issues with the current motion, but I also am wondering if people could speak to similarly to what us electing people, could people speak to why they would like to be there, and maybe we could have a process to allow something different without it having to turn down the motion.
Okay, we will check with staff. CAO.
Through the chair, could the corporate officer just clarify or articulate what this is all about? Because I don't believe this is to be a member of their society. I believe it's to attend an engagement.
Right.
Yes, they're having an engagement on November 24th. And that's why this motion is asking for ratification and now it's slipping my mind, to participate in hospice discussions.
And the time sensitive nature is the fact that we won't have a board decision in time for this. So there is a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And just a personal thought, Director Gisborne, you might want to just call them up yourself and say you're interested and see what they say.
Okay, thank you.
We're on to 7.10. Correspondence from the Pacific Aquaculture International. And there is a recommendation here to send a letter of support. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Director Elliott, thank you. Director Gisborne, seconding. Discussion. Director Gisborne.
Thank you. I've read the correspondence, and there's some discussion around the impacts on climate change and the heat dome in our aquatic environments. And that is where there's correspondences in relation to collaborating with these professors and these engineers, professor and engineer. And even though there is that whole geopolitical thing going on, at the same time, these climate issues and trying to protect our marine environments, I think, are also very significant and important for our region. So even in light of all the geopolitical stuff going on, I will vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion on the resolution before us? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. So now we are finished correspondence. And on to reports. 8.1, the St. Gerard's Catholic Church Bell. What is your pleasure with this item?
Move the recommendation.
The recommendation has been moved. Is there a second? Director Doubt, thank you. Discussion. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I just recall a story from Charlie Bombardier, whereby his family was responsible for getting the bell in the old country, and his own parents, and bringing it over here. And when he was telling me this, he was concerned because he didn't want the bell to be sold with the building. And he had expressed an interest in maybe having his family repatriated at some point. And my question is whether anybody asked Charlie about what he preferred for this bell, or whether that was relevant to our decision here today.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I'd like to refer this question to Patrick Deborah, Manager of Operation Services.
Mr. Deborah, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. The mausoleum and St. Gerard's Church and the bell itself are all important culturally to Powell, or the Catet area Italian community. I have spoken with the DeVita family, with some of the Bombardiers. I did not speak with Charlie himself. I did speak with Rob. They all seem to be on board with this moving to the mausoleum. I didn't hear any other comments negatively about moving the bell.
Thank you, Director Doubt.
Yeah, I think I was really happy to see this. I know the congregation took great care to rescue that bell when they sold the church recently, and I was hoping that it would find a good place in the community to be honored, I guess, is the best way. And I think this is a great solution. I think it looks like it's going to cost about $80 a year for the regional district to take care of it. I think it's a great solution, and I support this motion.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are now on to 8.2, the Rotary gazebo plan being proposed for Palm Beach Regional Park.
Move the recommendation.
Recommendation, and you're seconding, Director Deborah. Thank you. Discussion, Director Brander.
I very much in approval of it. It's a very busy park down there, so I think it'll get a heck of a lot of use. I've spoken to Mr. Devereaux about where they plan on locating it, and I think it's going to be great. I thank Rotary for coming up with the idea.
Thank you. And I agree. I think all parks need gazebos and structures of this sort. Director Paul, you're next, and then Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. This is very generous of the Rotary Club, and I appreciate the analysis of staff. And I have a question, a basic question. I think $850 per year is a pretty good deal for getting a free structure like this. And I just want to make sure I understand: would this $850 per year is basically going to be added onto an item in the parks budget for next year? Is that the implication here?
Mr. Devereaux?
Yes, Chair. To answer Director Fall's question, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to express thanks to the Rotary Club because it is an extremely generous project, and I wanted them to make sure that we all appreciate it very much. I really enjoy that park quite a bit. I know there are a lot of events out there that will be very much enhanced by this little gazebo. So thank you, Rotary Club.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we'll vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 8.3, volunteers working in QRD parks.
I'll move the
Recommendation.
Okay, Director Gisborne, Director Fall is seconding it. Discussion. Director Fall.
Just a brief comment. I mean, this looks really good. We've talked about this in the past, and so it's not new for some of the directors from last term, but I think it looks really nice. I think the presentation is great. It's done, I'd say, a beautiful job by staff producing the information that the public will see, because normally our policies are kind of a bit more drab, and I think it looks, they're more functional, I should say perfunctory, but this is really good. It makes sense, and it balances the risks of the regional district of having volunteers that we've talked about with the benefits, the huge benefits we get from volunteers. And I think it's very good. And I really appreciate the monitoring part that's come up in the past, because this is a first step and we don't know. I mean, maybe we need to see if we need to relax things. Is it too restrictive, or if something comes up? So I really appreciate that it'll be monitored. We'll have data, and then we can reassess it in the future.
Thank you, Director Paul. Director Gisborne, and then I'll put myself on the speakers. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. If memory serves correctly, I think it was July of 2021 when the Rotary Club, which we discussed in the last motion, approached the QRD about maintenance in the cemeteries. It was August of 2021, a motion was brought forward to look at volunteers in parks more generally. I am very grateful for the support of our staff and the board to get us to this point and bring this initiative to fruition. I'd also have to thank the AVICC for hosting their conventions, which is where this topic of volunteers in parks was actually brought to my attention by another elected official. And that's one of the reasons why I'd like to encourage all elected officials to attend, AVICC and UVCM, because, a challenge we might have locally, another regional official goes, oh yeah, we had that, done 10 years ago. And so I'm very grateful that we've gotten to this point, and I'm also very thankful for the QP response, which makes their position clear, that we're not trying to replace any of the existing workers. And I also agree with what Director Paul says, that we're going to continue to monitor it, because Powell River has a bit of uniqueness, and maybe we'll have to adjust the policy going forward. So I'm very happy to see this moving forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. And I guess I echo those sentiments as well. I've been approached by a number of people who say, we'd really love to, come in and just clean up all the windfall and all the debris that's landed in the trails in the park. Can we do it? And of course, we've got to say officially, no, you can't do it. There's other people who've approached me who are regular hikers, and they want to get in there and clean up some trails. And again, our official policy has been to discourage that. So I'm really, really happy to see this policy. I appreciate the support of the union and their consultation in it. I do have a couple of questions, though, that I wonder if I may address to Mr. Deborah, since you're still here. And I'm looking at page 2 of the report itself, or rather page 8, I guess, of the report itself. And it's at the beginning, no, page 2 of the report. And it says program introduction, and it talks about a program for community groups. And so my question to Mr. Deborah is, do they have to be community formal groups, or if a bunch of people want to get together one day and clear a trail, do they have to be in a community group in order to do that?
Yes, I can answer that for you, Chair. Our preference is, of course, to have groups. It was set up for groups, and that's easier to control. But we're not going to deny anyone from volunteering. We'll work with them to go through the hoops here, sign up, and have them do appropriate volunteer work.
Okay, thank you. And I'm wondering if an appropriate sort of umbrella organization on Texada might be the Texada Island Recreation Commission. On the mainland, of course, you've got ORUG that does a lot of the work, and they receive funding to do that work, etc. Would the Rec Commission be an appropriate umbrella to oversee trail work on Texada by volunteers?
Chair, I'd have to review the bylaw because the Texada Island Recreation Commission is mandated by bylaw of the board. I'd have to review that to answer that question.
Okay, thank you. I have reviewed it and I think it fits, but again, that can be perhaps brought forward by the Rec Commission. So those are my questions, and just once again, thank you very, very much for bringing this policy forward. It's much appreciated. I know people will, you know, develop hopefully a long lasting love for parks as a result of being able to work on them. Director Lennox, I see you there.
I just want to add my voice to the support of the motion, and you know, the report and policy both echo the health benefits to the groups and people involved. Great work by staff on a wholesome policy involving the unions and various stakeholders. So I just really wanted to add my voice to the group. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Director Elliott.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think it's a wonderful to get a policy that allows us to have volunteers. I think that's wonderful. So because I'm just new, I wanted to clarify most of these things that we are recommending, they end up on another meeting as well, or is this the final decision-making place? Because I'm used to committee of the whole referring, you know, questions, answering, discussion, and then it gets referred to another decision, like to the council. Is that how we do it here too?
No, we do refer it to the regional board.
Yeah. So it will
land
land
at the board
at another
this
meeting.
decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's just my question. Thanks.
And that's typical for all committees, you know, at the regional districts.
I just wanted to make sure.
So, yeah, no, that's it. You got it.
Thank you so much.
Further discussion, Director Dow.
No, just, I think this is a good thing to do. I want to underline my appreciation for the cooperation of the union with this, because when you start talking about who will do works regarding regional district properties, that's a sensitive issue, and I understand that the union wants to keep jurisdiction over the work that they get paid to do and look at their job security. So it's significant that the union is agreeing to allow volunteers to do this work in certain circumstances, and I think we have to respect and honor the agreement from our side too when we're doing that. But I think all in all, it's a great step forward.
Thank you, Director Dow. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing no hands, we will vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. So now we are on to item 8.5 on the agenda, the election results, reporting these out. There's no motion attached, so these are for our information. Under 8.6, a strategic planning workshop is being proposed. CIO.
Through the chair, I would just like to remind you all that if you're looking at a outdated agenda, the recommendation is or has been left blank because I received at the 11th hour a other consultant who I was communicating with received their schedule, which did fit into your schedules, if you will. So it's up to you to determine which consultant you wish to choose.
All right, so we would need to have a motion on the table to do that. Director Gisborne?
Yes, I would like to move the new motion that the committee recommend the board engage Tracy Lawrenson to lead and facilitate a strategic planning workshop to help guide and inform the next four-year term and the 2023 budget deliberations at a cost of $12,000 plus expenses, and that the workshop take place on February, and let me just get the dates.
13 and 14.
I think we've got here, I'm looking at the report.
6, 7, 8.
Yeah, 6, 7, 8. Seems to be the best dates, because going to 20th, 21st, or 22nd gets close to AVICC issues. And
okay, so we'll get clarification on the dates then.
yeah. So that's the motion I'm putting forward, and with a second, or I'll speak to it.
Okay, well, let's get clarification on the dates, and then your motion is complete.
Oh, and for the CIO, I updated my agenda, and now it's back to the original one. I don't know what happened.
So through the chair.
Yeah.
So the report has Tracy Lawrenson's availability as either February 6th, 7th, and 8th, or 2021 and 22. So those are the choices for that particular person. The other choice was for the other facilitator for availability.
And
So I guess it's to the board pleasure as to which of those two would work better. So
okay, we're gonna get clarification from CAO, who will know how this fits with our meeting schedule.
It's through the chair. You are correct, Director Gisborne. Tracy Lawrenson is available on the 6th, 7th, or the 8th, or the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I did point out that February 20 is a stat holiday. And the other thing is you only need to choose 2 days. So it'll either be the 6th and the 7th, or the 7th and the 8th, or 21 and 22.
And I would like to choose the 7th and the 8th for the purposes of the motion. And if anyone wishes to amend it for better dates, that's up to the assembly.
Okay, so the motion has been made with Tracy Lawrence and it's for February 7th and 8th. You're seconding that, Director Paul? Okay, thank you. Discussion. Director Gisborne and then Director Paul.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of working with both Gordon McIntosh and Tracy Lawrenson at previous QRDA engagements. I think they're both wonderful. I also had the pleasure of working with Tracy during my time on the AVICC executive, where she worked as a facilitator for our executive on some broader initiatives. I see the strategic planning session workshop as an extension of our orientation process. And the reason I believe Tracy is the best fit for this new board is something that she had said on social media shortly after the recent election. If the board has no opposition, I can read what she says if there's no objections.
I'm not seeing any objections.
Okay. This is something that she put on her social media. And she said, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of orientation is to connect the new team in a focused workshop forming part of the orientation. Elections are hard, even when all or most of the incumbents are returned. The process of an election changes things. High-functioning councils and boards leverage the strength of each member to build a strong team and don't shy away from the soft stuff at the outset. It is far easier to start strong, including repairing damage to relationships, than it is to repair significant conflict that has festered. The rules and legal environment is important, but far more challenges occur when group dynamics are ignored. Over the past few terms, I've used a behavioral profile with more than 600 elected officials and quite a few councils over each new term. One thing that is clear, the more councils and boards lean in and value the differences between their members and identify potential causes of conflicts, the more they increase the likelihood of success. And when I read that, I was very much moved by her words, and having experienced working with her at the QRD as well as AVICC, I think that to me, that kind of, even it's a little bit more money, it tips my scales a little bit more towards Tracy. So that's why I'm putting forward this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a comment and a question. I'm fine with either of these people, and I think Tracy would be fine. On my own travel difficulties, the 7th and 8th does work a little bit better for me than the 6th and 7th, just because I can come up on the Monday and then go back on, after the Wednesday. So there's no ferries Tuesday, Wednesday. So the dates work good for me. The only question I have is, we have yet to set these, the timing and a schedule of 2023 meetings. So we don't really know if there would be a conflict of meetings. But if we were to continue on a similar pattern as we have now, the question is, would that conflict or synergize with any other meetings? Because of course, if there were other meetings while I'm up, on the 9th, for example, I would stay. But if there's meetings on the 8th, does that impact anything?
No.
Thank you. We don't know yet, but the date has been noted and it will be part of December conversation.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just work around it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Paul. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we will vote.
Actually do have something to say.
Julia?
So we're looking at 2 days facilitation, and one of them's proposing a survey ahead of time. is it really that expensive for a facilitator? It seems fairly high priced, or is there something I'm missing? There's not an awful lot of information as far as what the terms of reference for the job is. And I'm guessing they're going to also write a report, right? So are these people charging out at, you know, 500 an hour or any, like, what's the, why is it so high?
CEO?
Through the chair, that's a good question to ask them.
Did it not come as part of their proposal to have information?
Through the chair, they charge flat rates. Another consultant was 15,000, and another consultant just basically said thanks but no thanks, because he already had his schedule booked up until the end of March, so he couldn't even touch us. But that's the going rate.
Business. Okay, sorry, I was a little bit flabbergasted. And then as for dates, I just wanted to do a quick check because it sounds to me like the 7th would be on a day that we would. Oh no, it wouldn't be. Okay, no, we're good. Thanks.
Okay, good. Director Kim.
Maybe help Director Elliott out a little bit here. What we're doing is we're asking a professional individual to travel to Powell River and to sit down for 2 days to the Cadet Regional District and sit down for 2 days and bring all the staff and the directors of the regional district together to work out an agreed upon strategic plan for the next 4 years. Not something that everybody can do. A lot of people try it. Some people are better than others. The people that we're choosing from today are known far and wide, as Director Gisborne says, to be good at what they do. It's not a simple task, and it costs what it costs. There is, you know, we've got 2 different prices there, a couple $1,000 difference. But I'm satisfied to go with the individual that's there, and they do a valuable job, and it's hard to do. If anybody's ever tried to get all of these independent people to think at least a little bit the same way, you realize how difficult it can be.
Thank you, Director Dowd. And yeah, it's a bit like trying to weave all these different threads into one tapestry at the end of it. And facilitators do have special skills. So is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands, we will vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. So there are no items of new business. We are now on to question period.
Well, thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to ask some questions. My first is with regard to item 8.2, the Palm Beach Regional Park Rotary Gazebo. I did read the report, but it's not clear to me where the covered shelter would be located. Can that be pointed out, Chair?
Mr. Deborah, Patrick Deborah.
Yes, Chair. The proposed gazebo will be about 25 meters from the beach, close to a clump of trees that is towards the Powell River side of the park, if that helps, Mr. Galinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Devereaux. That does help indeed. My next question is with regard to item 8.3, volunteers working in QRD parks, properties, and trails. And I'm wondering how requests will be determined by staff, whether they meet the requirements of the policy or whether they're a staff issue. And it's not really clear to me how that determination will be made, Chair.
Thank you. Paul, Mr. Deborah.
Staff will follow the policy, Chair. In the framework, there are outlines of what's determined as a good project, and no group will be turned away. I don't think for there's no criteria on the type of group as such, if that's the question.
I thank you, Mr. Devereaux. I was asking about how the determinations can be made whether the application for volunteering qualifies via the policy. Will you, for example, be looking at the policy, looking at the request, and making that determination, Mr. Devereaux, through the chair?
Mr. Deborah?
Yes, through the chair. Staff will make those decisions, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Devereaux. Is there a, through the chair, is there a provision for staff to grieve any of the allocations that might be made? Does the union have an opportunity to contest it if they think it falls into their workflow?
Deborah?
Yes, through the chair. Staff will have ongoing talks with the union about these projects. It's not a one-shot deal. This is an ongoing process.
I thank you very much, Mr. Devereaux, for your responses. My final question is with regard, Chair, to item 8.6, the strategic planning workshop. Director Gisborne read a motion that was different than the one that is in my agenda. Was there an revised agenda issued for where this new motion is covered?
In the report.
Yes, it is in the report, but go ahead, Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Chair. And I can share that after the meeting.
If that's appropriate, I would appreciate that. Those were my questions, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Polinsky. Anyone else wishing to ask us a question? Hearing no one, we have a motion in front of us under 11 for the in-camera session. Would someone like to propose this motion? Sorry.
Yes, and thank you. Just a reminder that we're including section C, labor relations, in the motion.
Okay, sections including section C. Yeah, go ahead, Director Gisborne.
I see Director Lennox has his hand up.
Okay, Director Lennox.
Just moving the motion, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And you're seconding?
Yeah. Do we need to read it out or?
Do we need to read it out?
Thank you. For transparency, we usually read the proposed closed session motion out loud.
Are you able to do that, Director Lennox, from where you are?
Sorry, no.
I can do it.
Go ahead.
I move that the committee move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district, and C, I have it somewhere here. C, labor relations or other employee relations, and N, the consideration of whether a committee meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Thank you. And Director Lennox, you're seconding that? Okay, discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. You're going in camera. It's the board that makes the decision. We make a recommendation.
They're back in line.
Yeah, it's, I think, you know, like.
Hungry, it must be supper time.
Where's the title zone?
Awesome.
The
Thank
Thai
you.
food we had at the
Oh,
orientation.
Are you ready, Roger?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have no resident report from committee of the whole, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, so